Thank you all for coming. I'm going to address the needs and the deficiencies of the current station. Then Ted Ayers, he's a lifelong resident of Middleborough, a former selectman, and he's been on a number of boards and committees. He's going to address the history of the Police Station Study Committee and do some comparisons to other renovations of historical buildings and give you a little bit of insight on the historical aspects of this. When Ted's done, Town Manager Mr. Costello, he'll address the cost of the project. We also have the gentleman with the white shirt and the tie on, that's Todd Costa. He's a Middleborough resident. He's the architect for Castle Booze. They're the architectural firm that we are working with. And then we have Joe Sullivan. He's at the end of the table here. He's the project manager for the town of Middleborough. He works with Daedalus. So he watches out for our needs. At the end of the presentation by all of us, then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. Any questions that you have, we'll entertain at that point when we're done. But I'd like to first just remind everyone, if they haven't been through the station, they can go on middleboroughpolice.com. When you go on our website, there's a tour of the police station in the top right-hand corner that you can click on. It's about a 30-40 minute presentation of the building. It takes you through the building with a number of offices, parts of the building that you're not going to see driving by. And I would recommend anybody that has any questions or wants more insight to do that. When the weather breaks, we'll also have an open house there at some point. That'll be announced. The primary mission of this committee was to get a modern police facility. We have to remember that the current building was built in 1808. This was, just for historical significance, this was before there was any police officers in the United States. There were none. So this building certainly had no intention or design to be used as a police facility because in 1808 there were no police officers. The secondary mission of the committee was to find another use for this building. Like I said, the primary mission was to get a modern police station. The secondary was to find a use for this building and a tenant to occupy it and maintain it. The station should be a reflection of the community it serves. This is not the case, as the ability to deliver the proper police service is directly dependent on the existence of a functional support facility equipped to meet the service needs of the police department and the Middleborough residents. This building no longer meets the needs of the police department. It negatively affects the efficiency, the safety, the security, the technology, the morale, and the overall policing efforts. Quite frankly, it's dangerous and pathetic. We have a lot of safety problems with this building that we're trying to address. As you can see, as these videos will show, all aspects of the prisoner processing and retention are compromised because of the current building layout. We go up and down 2 flights of stairs with combative or impaired person, which is extremely dangerous. Having no sally port and entering with prisoners through the public entrance is dangerous and puts the public at risk. Prisoners are booked and interviewed within arm's reach of public areas and unsafe and poorly secured areas. Prisoner control and movement is extremely dangerous. There's no area to safely detain juveniles either. A juvenile cell, along with 2 other cells, have been condemned by the State Department of Public Health. Prisoners can and have escaped, and monitoring prisoners in a cellar from a 2nd story is a tragedy waiting to happen. We don't have a proper armory. Evidence is often left in the hallways and rooms for firearms, narcotics, and other evidence that we are mandated by law to preserve for decades is insufficient. Some windows have deteriorated to the point they cannot be locked. Some outside doors are fashioned with old-fashioned hook locks. A lack of interview space to separate prisoners from victims and witnesses is a major issue. Conferences with the public are compromised because of the lack of this space. We don't have a decontamination area where an officer who gets exposed to bodily fluids from someone else or other dangerous substances can clean their body and their clothes without taking them home. The current building, as you'll see in some of these photos, is loaded with asbestos. Some of the efficiency problems that we don't have a training area. We don't have a conference area. We have no formal roll call area. We conduct roll call with women in the men's locker room. We don't have desk space for shift supervisors to conduct business. The interaction with the public is poor. Discussions are held in hallways and conversations are often compromised. The HVAC problems are immense. The electrical system is antiquated. Our wiring system is a maze because of the building layout and materials used to construct it originally. In the summer, when too many of our 11 window-mounted AC units are running, we experience power issues that affect our computer system. Energy efficiency is very poor. As I stated, windows are antiquated and brittle. They're nowhere energy efficient at all. The E911 equipment and computer servers are located in rooms that don't have adequate cooling and ventilation, which puts them at risk. Firearms processing requires people to enter areas that should be restricted to employees only. The workspace for the civilians and the police officers are inadequate. Our vital records are stored in the attic with no climate control and lack of security, and has already sustained some water damage. Current building does not meet any ADA requirements. These are some of the major deficiencies. Not all, but the major ones. I've gone through tours of this building with probably 100 people, and hopefully 100 more will come in. Not one person that's gone through this building with me has said, you don't need a police station, a modern police station, not one. There's been questions, other questions, about how you're going to fund it, things of that nature. But I haven't had one person say you don't need it. My biggest fear is that if this doesn't get done now, it'll take a tragedy, whether it's to a civilian, an employee, a prisoner, along with a huge lawsuit to get this thing done. This needs to be accomplished. Ted?
Thank you, Bruce. Well, that's a very sobering indictment of the present facility, to be sure. Look, the need for an updated police station, there's nothing new about this. This was highlighted by capital planning as far back as 1990. And we've been pushing this along and pushing this along for one reason or another. Good times, bad times, we've never quite gotten a handle on this. I've been on this police station study committee since 2004. In that time period, we've looked at a variety of different sites. We looked first into building a new building out on Wood Street, Route 28. We've looked at the hospital site. We've looked at the Washburn Mill site. There was some discussion this past year about the Winthrop Atkins building, and also discussion about the Rockland Trust Everett Square site. We've looked at all these possibilities. But I'd say in the end, and why we've come to this point, we come down to two important points. The first is the station needs to be located downtown. Now, the other side of Bruce's comments are the fact that we operate, or the town operates the police department on a very, very limited shift basis. We don't have tons of police officers roaming the streets, as we all know. And so we have to make the very most of the people we have. Having a station downtown means that you've got police presence to and from shifts. You have, in a sense, a free aspect, if you will, of police coverage in the area that most needs it. But a second concern that we had was, as Bruce mentioned earlier, what do we do with the existing building? Now, again, it's one thing to say, well, we'll just build a new station. Again, the Wood Street facility sort of was going to accomplish that. But what do you do with the present station? Well, we approached the library, we approached other groups. We found no one that was really interested in occupying it. There was no real need to. There was some discussion, well, perhaps if we closed and sold the Center Street part of the town hall, we could operate the, but again, that wasn't even practical, based on the investment we have in Center Street. But again, you can't just turn your back on it. If you want an example of the town of Middleborough turning its back on something, go down to the railroad tracks and look at the C.P. Washburn plumbing shop. That's an example as to what happens when you turn your back on a building. Those of you who haven't seen it, it is a mess. It is falling apart. The current police station, yes, it's a historic building, but more important than that, it's a vital part of the townscape. We can't let that building deteriorate. You really can't without the entire downtown suffering. So this was, in a sense, it compounded the problem we had. Now, as an example of what we didn't want to happen, and we all love the town of Bridgewater, but they built a new police station. They located it outside of town. I'm sure many of you have been by it. It looks very, very nice. They had previously occupied the Bridgewater Academy building right on the green in the heart of Bridgewater. They left that building. But they also left behind all the problems. So now there's a question of what you use this vital part of the townscape for. And I happen to look at the proposal that's out there, which achieved at some cost, with a $9 million price tag to basically renovate the old academy building so it can be used for even a commercial purpose. While if we were to abandon the current police station for another site, we wouldn't have quite that much money at our current police station, but there would be a multi-million-dollar prospect. So if you catch my drift on this, coming to the conclusion we did about a renovation and addition process, and this is a very important part of this, renovating the existing space and then simply locating police operations in a new structure, thereby eliminating all of the nightmares that you saw in the slides. You have your police operations here, you have an efficient way of dealing with prisoners, you have a sally port, all these things we don't have. At the same time, you continue to use the older structure for offices. Now, police stations, in terms of their per square foot, the cost is very, very high, several $100s a square foot, because of all of the requirements meted out by the state and the feds, things that you can't get around. Now, granted, these have all grown over the years and significantly since 9/11, but by using the existing space, we actually can invite a smaller square foot cost simply because this is existing space and to use it as office facilities. So, in coming up with the program that you've seen, you see the photos of simply renovating the existing building and adding on to the rear of it. If you notice the idea to keep it architecturally compatible with the existing structure, we basically accomplish all of the goals that the committee set out that we noticed, that we realized we had to complete. We've basically got good police presence. We've kept the old building useful. Now, I want to assure everybody that throughout this process, the committee has basically very tirelessly tried to keep the cost associated with this building to a minimum. We have on many and several occasions, I guess the polite word would say beaten up on the architect and anyone else, keep the square foot cost down so that the townspeople would not have an extravagant facility. I've been a part of this town government since sometime in the 1980s, and there's always the suspicion when something new is proposed that it is lavish, it's expensive, we have excessive comfort. I assure you this is not the case with this renovation and addition. We have done everything we can to keep costs down and to make the design efficient to the space. But at the end of the day, I think the committee is very aware of the fact this is a significant amount of money. And by going for a debt exclusion, we are asking for town the voter support to pass this. And without it, we cannot pass it. But in spite of its expense, I think you all know if we built this 10 years ago, it would have been millions of dollars cheaper. If we decide not to, if the voters decide not to go forward with this project, the cost is only going to go up. Some mention was made, or has been made, about the idea, well, can't you get grants? Why do the taxpayers have to bear the brunt of this? And the answer is, starting in the 1990s, there were grants available to help offset police stations. But 9/11 changed all that. It all went into those wonderful things we know and love that require us to take our shoes off before we get on planes, that we can't carry anything liquid, et cetera, et cetera. It all went to TSA and other places. There is no money out there now to basically renovate or construct new police stations. So we are stuck with that. Again, if we built it earlier, we might have had help, but we simply don't have that as an outlet. And I'd like to close by saying, look, we realize this, again, with all, in humility and respect, we realize we need voter support for this to go forward. But I would like to say, and again, based on my experience in all various capacities in the town has not come to the voters very often. In my tenure, going back to, I guess, 1981. Most often, we're able to accomplish things within the town budgets without asking for a debt exclusion. We've come once for that. This project, again, I think the chief's presentation makes it very, very clear. This needs to be done. This isn't a question of, well, can't you get by for another 10 years with it? It needs to be done. It needs to be done now. And again, as member of this committee who has served very faithfully on it, I ask for your consideration when this comes up to a vote to support this measure. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to, excuse me. Again, my name's Todd Costa. I'm the project architect. I'm also a Middleborough resident. I'm just going to briefly walk everybody through the project for anybody who's not familiar with it, hasn't seen it before. What we see here is the lower level plan, which is the basement level of the existing station. From this line forward to the top of the page here is what you have existing. And all of that is being retained, but it's being retained as the much needed storage that the department needs, as well as a properly sized physical plant, mechanical type spaces. Below that line, below this stair point, this is what we're calling the critical police functions. It's in the new building. It is properly seismically reinforced, and it's housing all of the critical functions of the police officers, the 24/7 operation, so to speak. So this is the lower level, which houses their evidence, some of the mechanical systems, as well as locker rooms for them to be able to come in and separate between male and female locker rooms and change for their work. On the main level, again, the existing building stays intact. What you see in light blue, that is police operations area, both at the top of the building, or the top wing of the existing building, as well as down here. This is the patrol operations. Everything that you see in yellow is general public access. So the main entry point is now coming down to the side of the building off of Jackson Street. You'll come into the main lobby area. You'll be greeted by a dispatcher who would be in that green area. That is a designated area. That is a requirement by a national code for a communication center that they have to be self-sustained and housed, protected from the rest of the building. So that's why that's designated a little bit differently. Public, again, is all green. So you have public restrooms. We have a meeting and training area, which is the existing clerical area, or the former courtroom. And then you have a couple of public interview rooms located off the lobby. Down in the lower corner here, the dark blue area, that is a separate and segregated detention area. As the chief mentioned earlier, some of the issues that they have is they bring their prisoners in through the public lobby. mixing public and detention, which is never, it's a risk that the station has to take right now. Appropriately, this is all separate. So somebody who comes in that is arrested, they never go beyond this area. They come in via Sally Port, the vehicle pulls directly in, they escort the person out, put them in their cell. When they're released from their cell, they actually have a separate door that they go out, and they go right out to the public. So they never intermingle with civilian staff or civilian, the public who is coming into the building. They're treated and extradited separately. On the upper level, again, it's part of the critical operations. That lower portion of the slide is all of the administration. The records department up there, the clerical department, as well as the chief's office and the chief's admin assistant. The upper portion of the building here, because it is not accessible, it is not ADA compliant, which means a person in a wheelchair cannot access that floor, is basically being utilized for mechanical type functions to support those areas below. On the site itself, we have the main building, which is the light purple. That's the existing building. The dark purple is the new building, and we have an outbuilding, which is for their vehicle maintenance, some long-term, large property storage type items would go out there, as well as a vehicle processing bay. You have full access all the way around the site. Police cruisers are stored and separated from the personal vehicles, as well as public parking, which is along Jackson Street on this side here. And main entry comes in kind of right behind the old building right now, where the police cruisers actually drive in and behind. These are some perspective views that are computer generated, overlaid with some photos that we took of the area. So you can see the existing elevation that is on East Main will maintain its significance, and the new building will actually just play a backdrop to the existing building. And then you can see through from the fire department, and this looks at the entry point on the lower right. And one of the things we have to do is, with that training and that meeting area, we actually have to provide a handicap accessible egress point for anybody who may be in there. So there's a aluminum ramp that is going to be put in place that will actually come out and get people to a safe haven in the event of emergency. This is the plans for the outbuilding. That was that large purple cube on the outer edge. It basically gives them the ability to store their police motorcycles, their police ATVs, as well as an area that is out of the weather for them to do the vehicle maintenance and vehicle processing. If they get a vehicle that needs, basically it's an evidence vehicle, they have a secure area that they can lock that vehicle into and maintain the chain of custody on all of the evidence that is part of that vehicle. And just some perspective views showing how that relates to the historic museum back there. Project costs.
So in terms of the cost of this project, we're using a working estimate of $12.7 million. We're just at 90% design. We're getting another estimate fairly shortly, but we don't expect it to differ that much from this number. So assuming a $12.7 million project cost, the tax impact to the median single-family home of $311,300 would be, in the first year, $132.56. That's for a whole year. If you want to break that into the impact on the tax bill, that would be $66.28 for each of your 2 tax bills a year. And to take that one step further, that's approximately $11 per month if you want to think about it in terms of your monthly budget. So now that's the first year, and the way municipal debt works is it's not like a mortgage where you pay the same throughout the term of the mortgage. We're electing here to do a 30-year note. So the principal payments will be the same throughout the 30 years, but as we pay off that note, the interest expense will decline. So as you can see from this chart, in the 15th year, that impact to the median single-family home will be down to $98.82 per year. And then by the end, by the 30th year, it's reduced to $62.67 per year. So the good thing about debt exclusions is that they're a declining amount. So the first year is the most that people will experience, and every year thereafter it will cost a little bit less. And again, we're using a 30-year term. Right now, we're anticipating about a 4% interest rate. Oh, we have, for the people in the audience, we have some copies of the debt schedule if you want to come up and grab one. And we'll put that on the website as well sometime later this week.
Okay, we'll open it up to members of the public who want to ask questions. You can address any one of us. Like I said, Todd's the architect. He lives in Middleborough. Joe's the project manager. Open it up.
How long is it going to take?
You want to come up and ask questions? Well, remember, we do have a TV audience here.
Oh, hi, I'm Jenny Landis. I live on Plymouth Street, and I was curious to know how long the project is projected to take.
We'll let Joe, project manager.
Currently, right now, we're scheduled to have the completion of the project between 12 and 14 months.
A follow-up question, what are we going to do with our officers in the meantime?
That's a great question. We've actually looked at a number of sites throughout the whole town to temporarily move them out of the building and move them into a temporary location. And we found one right in the center of town where the old Reedy's Archery used to be. They'll be utilizing that space for that temporary facility.
And how will that be paid?
That's part of the project.
And so the project money for our town addition is going to be supporting
A temporary facility.
temporary facility owned by a private entity, who actually hasn't been all that friendly to our community, because he's let his building go to poop.
Well, I can tell you, let me go a couple steps further. We actually looked at the possibility of trying to house the police department in the building while we renovated it. And it would have escalated the cost exceptionally high based on trying to keep them there, build a building, and then pull them out of that building and put them in the newly constructed building. So we looked at the cost escalation and what it would be to do that, and then versus what it would cost to relocate them, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in difference.
Aren't there buildings that the town already owns and maintains and is responsible for that could in fact temporarily house the police until they can get back in their own pretty new home?
No.
The thing is, I mean, if you think about it, you think about all the functions that, Bruce showed in the photographs. I mean, there's a lot of square footage there. And if you think about what we have for town offices now, there isn't that space available. If we had that much vacant space, we could do it. The other thing is, it has to sort of be in one place. It doesn't make sense to break up police function and put it at various spots in the town, obviously.
Well, I don't have a complete inventory in my head of all of the things that the town buildings offer, but this building used to have cells, didn't they? Aren't we storing records in them now?
Well,
Remember, you have the
yes.
same problem is that, you have cells downstairs.
Okay, so it's no better than what we've got now, but at least it doesn't cost us anymore. I'm just concerned, candidly, that we're improving the property of a private person who has shown less than wonderful experience with our community. It's not Chris Reed's building. It's some trust who doesn't care about how Middleborough looks. Why should we put our taxpayer dollars into improving his property? Will he reimburse us for the improvements that you have to make to that building when he has this beautiful asset that he can now sell?
I can tell you that I diligently discussed the whole lease option of it, and we got it at a reasonable amount of money with the consideration that the town was going to be utilizing it as a temporary facility. So
you've gotten a deduction in the cost per square foot
to
offset the cost of improving the property?
Absolutely.
And you feel that that's a fair way to spend taxpayer dollars?
I can tell you categorically it's the best and smartest way to do it based on building this facility.
Well, I don't have the experience that you do, but I do have the concern that my taxpayer dollars are going into somebody's pocket that we won't ever have a long-term benefit for. We will definitely have a long-term benefit from this. This is beautiful work.
We're not going to do that much, you know. I mean, we just sort of have to,
Well, you have to bring
Camp
it up
out.
to code and give them bathrooms that flush, and that's not there now.
well, I believe that is part of an offset. I mean, if we have to put that kind of investment in it, that is a deduction. But I think at the end of the day, this is a modest cost, and it basically solves our problem. The impact on the total budget is really pretty small.
For 14
And again, now,
months,
you
18
got to
months.
understand also, and again, I mentioned this earlier on, but it's like, we've had to make plans here because it's not a question if the voters turn this down, but if it passes, then we need to have everything in place to make this work. So we have been trying to sort of get things lined up, if you will.
Right.
Nothing obviously is set in stone until this actually is passed by the voters.
Right, I understand you can't sign a lease till you have the guarantee of the money.
Correct.
I got that part. But I'm concerned, and you understand my concern as a private citizen, watching my tax dollars going to improve a property for a property owner in town who clearly doesn't care what the downtown looks like. And that aggravates me. It may be the right answer, as you say. If you're getting a good per square foot price, and he's compromising with you, or the trust is compromising with you in that regard, then maybe it's a great deal. I don't know, I don't see the statistics. But I'll tell you emotionally, water cooler chit-chat. You're putting public funds into a private building, and it's a little dicey.
But again, we're getting it at a reasonable rate so that making that kind of investment makes sense for the town as a whole.
Could we possibly say how much money we've allocated towards the total of moving the police there temporarily versus what it would have cost us to keep them on site or to do something else?
Yeah,
Mr. Rosenthal, you and I both know keeping them on site would be an unreasonable
Well, we looked at that.
option.
We looked
I
at
understand, and you have
Yeah.
to do your due
Yeah.
diligence, but that's an unreasonable, to renovate on top of an
That was the only
occupied space.
alternative. That was the only other thing we
Well,
could have done.
Well, I can answer one other further question. We looked at other locations as well in town, whether it be that building or another person who had a building available. It wasn't even comparable in costs based on square foot. And what we did is we were able to utilize the sheriff's department to actually do a lot of the labor, which even saved a lot more money on doing some of the retrofit into that building. And in addition to that, I've exercised a route where we are getting temporary petitions from other companies that have closed, and we're utilizing them inside that building. So the cost implications is bare minimum to accommodate the town's needs. And I'm going to put it to you another way. The location of where we're going, the police department's still going to be downtown, center of town, and it's going to be great for the entire town's needs overall. The parking facility out back between Benny's and that area behind him accommodates the police officers' needs, and the configuration of having doors on both ends of that building absolutely improves the operation of the police department in that temporary state. So I can tell you categorically, looking at you, I've looked at every avenue, and that's the least impact on the taxpayer dollar.
Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
addressing my concerns.
Okay.
Sandy Richter, North Street, and privileged to work in the Philander Washburn House down here downtown. Question about how this is placed on its lot. I don't know if you can bring that back up. About the parking behind the police station now. That parking lot, is that a public parking lot right now?
Correct.
Are we taking away from space for public parking for this project, just to be clear?
There are fewer spaces in the new configuration, correct.
Right.
And a lot of the parking that was out there was utilized by the library. And they just opened up their new parking lot within the last month or two, and that was most of the parking. The only time that lot is absolutely full is when they have the 4th of July events.
Right. Just wanted to be clear that, yeah, we're
There's still,
taking some space away, but,
there's still gonna be 60-something spots there. There's plenty of spots.
Right. And a lot of what we do there is we store vehicles there. We don't have to store vehicles there. There are other places we can store them. You know, It's convenient, but there are other locations.
As far as the entrance goes, and I just caught this, there's going to be, the main public entrance is now going to be the side on Jackson Street.
Yes.
The front entrance is going to, there's going to be some manner of you can't enter here kind of a
Yes.
situation. So that front part, the main historic part of the building is for office use mainly, yes? Never to be entered again by the general public?
Never say never.
The preference would be not to.
Okay. I understand for its purpose, there are some limitations. There's nothing you can do about that. But I look at it too as a historic building and think, are there ways that we can, keep the public interested in it as a historic building?
Well, one thing, there are a couple of things that the plan does envision. One is to replace the 1930s shutters with ones that are more historically appropriate to a Greek Revival building. And also, if you know, the entrance under the portico
Yes.
is currently glass. That'll be returned to a wooden door scenario, so that the facade of that building will be very much improved. And again, as I mentioned in my comments, it'll also be very much maintained, which is huge, but it won't be substantially changed. We tried to work around the entrance issue, but once again, one of the primary purposes of this renovation and addition is to basically provide the proper amount of security for police operations, and that was one thing we had to give into. My complaint about buildings, modern buildings especially, is you can't figure out where the entrance is. Well, we've tried to make the entrance, although it's on Jackson Street, obviously enough so that someone won't be scratching their head.
Right. I know, and it's kind of a little confusing because it's an obvious entrance, it's
It
the
is.
building itself. But I'm very pleased to see that we're maintaining the look and improving historically the look of the outside of the Main Street. I think that's a great purpose, so.
Actually, the inside, the training that is in the wing on the far east of the current building, that has a drop ceiling in it now. That ceiling, Todd can explain it a little better. It'll be much more back to its original view.
We had to, obviously, everything that is in yellow, where you see all of the tables and chairs kind of stacked in rows, that is the original 1930s courtroom. Thank you. But it goes all the way exterior wall to exterior wall. We need to maintain a secure operation for the officers, so we had to take a little bit of space out of that original courtroom. Above that ceiling is some beautiful historic detailing, and we are actually maintaining that detailing, if not improving on it, because of the fact that now we have to add this partition wall. We're actually going to replicate some of that on that inside wall so that the new room appears as though it was the original courtroom. So we are bringing some of that volume back into place there. It's a very significant volume, and there's a lot of natural light that's stuck above that ceiling that would definitely improve the atmosphere of that room. So we're trying to bring some of the significance back of the building, not just the main facade, but some of the stuff inside as well.
I know we'll have tours at some point.
Absolutely.
It's a ways away. Thank
And
you.
Thank you.
If I might add, Todd, the yellow is public access, correct? So
Correct.
that will be open to the public to see that restoration in that courtroom.
And to use the space.
That yellow area will be, once this project gets done, that yellow area will be open not only for us for training purposes, but to the public to use whenever they need to, and we certainly would entertain that. We're open 24/7, so if somebody wanted to use it, all that, you have restrooms, handicap access, all to that yellow area.
Hi there, Glenn Montepert, Marion Road. I placed the meeting invite for Middleborough, helping Middleborough, to keep people informed and updated as to what's going on. Of the questions that I did receive, thank you. You have answered why the new police station, the costs of the new police station, and how it's being paid for through debt exclusions. If there's more questions coming further, is there a place that you can go to note a question to somebody and get a response back, a website or a Facebook page or?
Next meeting's February 25th. It'll be 6 o'clock here. We are planning to have at least one open house. Try to wait if the weather ever breaks. We can do that. I definitely want people going through there. I publicly said that anybody that wants to come through, come down and see me, and I will take you through if you're a resident.
So the only way for a question to be answered is if they do it physically and they're in person?
Well, they could send me an email, and I can bring it up at the next meeting, and we certainly will respond.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You want to say your email address?
Chief Gates, Lincoln Andrews, 28 Sachem Street. My question is to the town manager, and it's about money. You were talking about the debt exclusion. I think that for the people that are watching, not everybody exactly knows what debt exclusion means. And also, Mr. Ayers referred to there being one other project, which was the Nichols Middle School. And would you please explain how the Nichols Middle School debt exclusion tax amount has been coming off the tax bill and how the two are going to overlap?
Sure. First question is about debt exclusions, and the way they work is they have to be approved by both town meeting and by a ballot vote. And so we have a town meeting scheduled for May 27th. It's a Tuesday. It's the day after the holiday, right after Memorial Day at the high school, same time, 7 p.m. And the ballot vote will be the June 14th, Saturday. And I don't happen to know the times of that right now, but that'll be publicized. And the question that goes to the public at both town meeting and at the ballot is to ask if the town would exclude from the limits of Proposition 2.5 a certain dollar amount, in this case $12,700,000, so that it could be raised over and above the current tax levy. And as I explained earlier, that happens to be a declining amount over the course of the loan, in this case a 30-year loan. And every year that amount declines, because every year as you pay off principal, the amount of interest you then have to pay going forward is reduced. The question about the Nichols Middle School, again, very much the same process. We are now coming to the end of that term, so what once was the original amount, as people have been paying their taxes, they've been paying off that amount, and I believe that amount ends somewhere around the year 2020. So that will have disappeared from people's tax bills at that point entirely. But as I said, as with most municipal debt, it's a declining amount. So every year, perhaps people haven't noticed it, but every year the amount has been reduced a slight amount to the point where it disappears entirely. Again, the beauty of debt exclusion votes is that they are only for the purpose of the debt service that's taken out to build the project, and once that debt service has been paid off, the amount disappears from people's tax bills.
Good evening. My name is Brian Giovanoni, and thank you for this presentation. One of the items that I was wondering is the total square footage of this project, which I don't know if it was presented here this evening, but I thought I saw a number about 28,000 square feet total, thereabouts, was at the beginning, which is interesting because at one point I thought it was much less than that, and as one of the people who've been trying to rack my brains as to where to put this someplace else so as to not spend 12.7 million, I haven't been able to find much more than 18,000 square feet anywhere, and you can't add on to that point. So I found it very interesting And the other question I would have is the outbuilding big enough for the police department? Because it seemed awful small to me to have 3 cars inside, but if it needed to be built bigger, better to do it now than later on. And not that I'm trying to tell you to start expanding a project, but.
Well, like Ted said, you know, we're not building a Taj Mahal, we're building what we need. I think that building is small for what we need with the amount of equipment that we have, but I think it's sufficient for now. And I think that's the type of building that could be expanded in the future if need be.
Hi, my name's John Capistron from Spruce Street in South Middleborough. I love the plan. I think it's fantastic, but I'm going to direct my questions to the architect. In the building renovation, you're going to take out the heating system, asbestos abatement, and you're going to put in what for heating system? Forced hot water, hydro air? I'm in the heating business. I'm sorry, I came directly from work. I do not sell boilers, but I work on high-efficiency gas boilers.
It is high-efficiency gas boilers that will be used. It is a 4-pipe system, so that portions of the building can be heated and cooled at the exact same time. I believe it's a VAV. I just have to verify that.
My dog in the fight, if you will, I work for a company. We provide Patterson-Kelly boilers, which are, I was working on 2.5 million boilers today that at the Sherman Building in Providence, and they were running at 98.6 efficiency, which is something, I know it's a Cadillac, but I would like to see the Cadillac. We have Church of Our Savior. We put in a condensing boiler 11 years ago. They've been saving about $6,000 a year in heating bills to heat that granite building. The Shaw Home just put in 2 1050 Patterson-Kellys. If you need a specification sheet, I would be glad to give you that.
I'll make sure my engineer gets it.
I am not a salesman, but working with these things all day long, they're high efficiency. They do a great job. You've got a local company that provides the, I do the service, by the way, and I would forego my service calls to give it to the town for free, but I just hate to see, you know, oh, I'm sorry. That's
receipt back?
Unless you want to pay my parking. But, you know, it's the efficiencies from a 300,000 BTU boiler to a 4 million. Bridgewater State, I've got a 4 million in there.
Okay.
Just outside the Moakley Court Center, I've got 22 3 million BTU boilers and all tied together working off that one control. I don't think you have that much of a heat load, but and they've located those boilers on the 16th floor to free up space on lower levels.
Appreciate the information.
Yes, thank you.
So duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crowley,
How you doing? Alan Frawley, 35 Forest Street. When was this committee first formed?
2004.
2004. Approximately how many sites have you looked at over the years?
About 6.
6 different sites. Have you,
I
you looked at
had
the?
gray hair when I started on this committee.
You looked at the old hospital.
What's that?
You looked at the old St. Luke's Hospital.
Yeah. Did.
You looked at the place down the street, the went to Backins, and you looked at a place out on Wood Street. So you decided that this is the best possible site available to us at the time.
One of the problems you have with police stations in general is that the requirements on their construction are so specific that not building a new building is tough. In other words, the idea you've got an existing warehouse space, let's put a police station in there. Well, it just isn't as simple or as cheap as you'd think because of the requirements. Again, it's like things that if you are a student of this, the existing facility, it doesn't make a difference because that's so far off the mark in terms of its legality that you can put it anywhere. But the requirements for police station are pretty specific. So this combination of renovating what we've got, adding police operations, and a new facility to the rear, to me is a great solution to the whole thing, and it minimizes the cost.
So if we were to move the police station, say, to another site, what happens to the existing police station?
Well,
that's a historically recognized building, a registered building,
That's
correct?
a big problem, because there aren't a lot of uses. And, you know, again, I suppose you could put a shishi restaurant in there, but it's not likely, and it's not likely to be successful. As much as I love this town, I don't think a haute cuisine is high on the list. So, you know, that was a major thing. And again, this keeps and improves the existing building, and it gives us the police operations we need.
The town owns the existing building?
Yes.
And we can't just sell it, or we can't bulldoze it?
No.
Hey, it wasn't a suggestion, it was just, I want to make sure that we're clear.
It's the only thing we got left that's on the National Historic Register.
So it's a nationally, it's on the National Historic
again,
Register of Buildings?
It's a great building. It's an important part of the townscape. That is another thing that's, you know, I mean, there was a time when North and South Main Street in Middleborough were lined with Greek Revival buildings. And I guess now we got the Congregational Church and we've got the police station. That's all that's left. There was the Nemasket House, you know, where that auto glass place is now, the market, all these places, they're all gone. So the police station we got left.
And it's also part of a complex. If you look at the library and the building across the street, which was owned by the gentleman who built the police station. The Purses were responsible for the library and the law offices, Speakers of Murray law offices. That was the Purse home. And so there's a lot of history in that area, in that neighborhood, that you really wouldn't want to turn that over to a private party and then hope for the best. So this way, it stays with the town, and we don't have to worry about what to do with it. The only reason we didn't look at this in the first place was that we didn't really believe that a new building could fit on that site. As soon as it was really demonstrated to us that it could work, then it seemed like the logical thing to do.
All right. The owner's project manager, is it Steve?
Joe.
Joe
Sullivan.
Joe Sullivan? And you were hired by the town to protect the town's interest as we move forward on this project? Construction costs, are they ever going to go down, or is this a good time to build?
No, I mean, from 1990 till now, the cost of construction has gone up 53%. So what you could have built in 1990 versus now, as Ted said earlier, it's millions of dollars difference right now.
It doesn't seem, the trend's only going to increase as far as that's
in fact,
concerned?
costs are only escalating in public construction as we speak right now.
How about interest rates? Are they going down?
It's a good time to do it right now, I'll tell you that much.
All right.
It's another thing about this project, because interest rates have remained so low, the bang we get for our buck is never going to be any better. I mean, those of us that have a few years can remember back in the late 70s, 80s, interest rates of 9%, 13%. You know, again, it's the mirror opposite of that right now, which is another good reason to act. Not only have you got the prospect of increased construction costs in the future, but you've got the prospect, because it can only go up, let's face it, unless you're going to start charging negative numbers for interest. So you've got the prospect of a double threat looking at us if we postpone this.
What year was this police station identified as the #1 priority by the capital planning committee?
Early 90s. Early 90s.
Like 1995, 94?
No, I think earlier than that.
Earlier than that?
Yeah.
So it's been on the list for a while.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of the town, you know, I mean, it's, well, we need a new high school, well, we need this, well, you know, I mean, all these other things have sort of taken its place in line, you know, the learning center. We've done a lot of things over the years. This keeps getting pushed off. But, and I think in part because the police department, you know, has been willing to put up with some pretty abysmal conditions, as those photos show you. But with the passage of time, the conditions have simply gotten worse to the point now. I mean, tell me, look at those slides, is it any question about what the existing facility is really complete failure? And dangerous. I mean, it's the thing that I think also that Chief's mentioned, but often underscored. I mean, the liability the town faces from a resident, from a prisoner, from a police officer, being injured substantially, falling down the stairs, taking somebody in. I mean, let's face it, people that are being arrested aren't exactly the most cooperative people in the world. Don't get me wrong, I can't testify, I've never been arrested. But my point is that, you know, you need something that a facility you can trust to deal with people like that, people that are disorderly and that sort of stuff. And the present facility doesn't do that at all. Just doesn't do it. I mean, again, it's a scary situation. Sooner or later, something bad is going to happen, and we want to be in a new police station, so that doesn't happen.
Chief, you'll give anyone a tour that wants a tour?
Anyone.
And we don't have to wear silver bracelets to do so?
Depends
Well,
if you're
if you are, you'll
selected.
get a tour anyway.
Get a
If
tour.
you're selected, like,
You can go up and down a
take the
flights of
exception.
stairs and handcuffed, and you get arrested.
Just to add something, Alan, that in order to preserve the building, which is, of course, the only building in town that's actually on the National Register, am I right in saying that?
Left, right.
We need to have less intensive use. That building is being overused to the point where it's endangering the continued existence of the building. This reconstruction, while we're doing as much as we can to make sure that we're minimizing the cost of redoing the old building, is going to guarantee that that building will still be standing there 100 years from now. We're removing a dormer that had weakened the roof. We're doing all kind of things to make sure that we're going to preserve that building so that the next generations have it. And there is a value to the historic downtown that Middleborough has that other towns don't have. And ultimately, it can be translated to a financial value. People come here, they drive down Main Street, they see the town is quaint. Some of these folks are affluent, and they choose to move to Middleborough. So there's a positive financial impact to maintaining our historic treasures. And this certainly is one of them.
And the fact that this was put off doesn't mean that it was less of a priority. We did the fire departments, the new fire stations first, partly because the floor was caving in, or in danger of caving in, on the old fire station. And then the old junior high school, the early childhood center, we were lucky enough to get a 79% reimbursement from the state. That just came along at the time that we were looking at that building, so we took advantage of that. But this has always been the next most important project all those years.
Charlie, as far as the debt exclusion is concerned, the increase on people's taxes, that's only going towards construction costs. Nobody's getting a raise.
No, it's the total project cost, including design and everything else, temporary quarters and
This
all the
isn't
rest.
going towards benefits or salaries?
Oh, absolutely
or
no.
anything
Purely,
like that?
This is
purely
a
only
local
for
project, not a
this
federal
project.
Well, I just want to be clear, because these are questions that people will have. I think that just about covers it for them. Oh, your meetings are open to the public,
Correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
and your next meeting's
Yeah,
next
they're always
Tuesday?
posted on the town's website. Like I said, the next one is the 25th, 6 o'clock, right here.
In this room?
Yep,
Anyone can attend.
anyway.
Beautiful, thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm Steve McKinnon, 867 Plymouth Street. I'm chairman of the Board of Selectmen. There's never a good time to spend a lot of money on a project. There's always something else. But I've seen that building. I'm over there every Friday night as a visitor, not a guest. I see the condition that our police officers are working in. Now, there's been a lot of discussion. I've attended several of the meetings. Been a lot of discussions about the laws that pertain to what we have to build to. Cells have to be a certain size. Now, I'm not particularly concerned about the criminals coming in there. You can put them in a stock out back for all I care. But I do worry about our police officers, because they have to deal with these people. And they have to deal with them in a situation that's very, very dangerous. The town has done a lot over the past few years. Our capital planning committee has done a tremendous job in trying to help get our town back to where we have to be. The town manager is partially responsible for that, as is unfortunately the Board of Selectmen. But we've tried to get the town back up to where it belongs. And I really think that this is our time for the police station. Now, a lot of people will say, well, it's $132 roughly. It's a lot of money. Well, that price does drop over the years. Now, I'm pretty certain I'm not going to see that 30-year mark. I don't think I'll be around for that, but that's okay. But yeah, we have to make a decision, and the decision is, do we want our police officers to be put in a more jeopardizing situation than they're already in? It is difficult enough to arrest somebody who doesn't want to be arrested and bring them into an environment where they're really not, most people don't want to go to jail. It's just not, you don't wake up on a Friday afternoon saying, I think I'll get arrested tonight. That sounds like a good idea. But it happens. And sometimes these people are more difficult. And in our environment, we are walking people up the front of a building and by what could be the victims sitting in a room. This is not a good situation. This is a very dangerous situation for everybody involved. So this $132 a year can eliminate a lot of dangers. Putting our officers in danger, and putting our civilians and our public in danger. Mr. Frawley mentioned many good points. There's probably not a better time to borrow the sum of money we have to borrow than right now. There's probably not a better time to get contractors than there is right now. We have a gentleman that's going to be watching those dollars very closely. Not crazy about spending money downtown for another business, for a lease, but it makes the most sense, dollar-wise and safety-wise, to move our police officers out of the environment they're in while the construction's going on. That's going to save us a lot of money. I think there was maybe $1 million more. I think for working construction costs around.
It was around. It was approximately $500,000.
So we're going to save money. We'll spend a little bit of money to save a lot of money.
I mean, we continually, even at 90% estimates that we're currently doing, we're constantly trying to value engineer and try to save every dollar I possibly can for the town of Middleborough. And even when we get into construction, I mean, are there going to be change orders? There always are with every project that we deal with. But I hate spending money. I do it for the betterment of the project, but we make sure we're getting every penny for every dollar that we're spending. So.
And we've heard from one of our townspeople brought in information about boilers he's selling, but efficiency, project efficiency. I mean,
absolutely.
This is what we're looking for.
Well,
and this is what your task is.
Correct. And we're building to the most current code,
right,
which efficiency is part of that code. So.
And the current code dictates a lot of the costs.
Correct.
So, the pros and cons, you know, you mentioned the Pierce building. A lot of people, there are people that value that know what that is. There's a lot of folks in town, when you mention that name, you might as well be talking about Arkansas. It doesn't mean anything to them. But we do have to protect our heritage. And this will be a piece of taking care of that and keep that building going for a lot longer.
Excuse me, just for folks who don't know, we have a vehicle in this town called the Pierce Trust that fundamentally gives the town $100,000 a year that we buy police cruisers and all kinds of other things with. Oh, yeah. The person who founded that trust was a person who owned the Pierce store. So just to put that in perspective.
That's good. Yeah. And I'm glad you got that out there now. Right. There's a lot of people that didn't know that.
before you said that. And they may not make that connection. So, what am I saying? I'm saying that this is the time for this police station. We need to take care of our police officers. We need to take care of that building. We've got a good project team together. And I support this. I support this 100%. I want to see this go forward. I admire the work you've done. You've talk about beating your head against the wall. You've been doing this for what? 10 years? 12 years? 12? Probably seems like a lifetime. But you've done a great job. You've looked at all the possible locations. The stars will never line up. There's always going to be something that we don't like about this. But you take out what you don't like, there's a lot left that you do like. And this is what you got to look at, I think. And I think this is the time to go forward with it. So I encourage people to come down, tour with the chief, go into that police station, preferably without handcuffs, and take a look at the building. Take a look at, really look at what you're seeing, because the pictures are one thing, but they really don't do it justice. You really got to walk through there and visualize this, and see that building, and see what you're replacing. Our employees' safety is at risk here. And this is something we have to look at. So I implore you all, go down, tour the facility, think it through, weigh it, and hopefully vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
John Knowlton, 84 Pearl Street. I want to thank everyone on the committee for the work you've done. I do have a question, though. Building a new police station gives you a life expectancy of that building for how long?
Approximately 50. We build for approximately 40 to 50 years out.
40 to 50 years?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? The only foolish question is the one that's not asked, so. Now's the time. Does anybody on the committee want to make any final statement?
I would like to. I don't know whether anyone knows, but the Office of Economic and Community Development has applied to the state to become a cultural district downtown. Restoring this building will contribute to that greatly. And what does that do for us? It opens us up to a lot of grant dollars to revitalize downtown. This could be a real help in stepping up and moving the town forward and breathing some new life into it.
Chief, I'd just like to say last statement on it is that the police station being down the center of the town is the anchor for the town. I mean, function around the safety for the community, the safety for downtown, and at the end of the day, public support is what we need for this project. So I encourage people to come to these meetings. I encourage people to come to the forums that we're going to have. We're planning on having 1 or 2 additional forums just to kind of educate and inform people as much as we can. And I encourage the questions to come in, because answering those questions will take out any misconceptions anyone in the town has about the project or the costs associated with it.
Last chance for questions? Well, I think the committee's done their due diligence. We're going to, bottom line is we're going to preserve and occupy the old building. It's falling apart now. This will preserve it. We'll use that for the administrative functions mainly. And the new part, the core essential functions of the police department will be conducted in. So it solves 2 huge problems for the town. And it's a needed project. I think we made our point, and like Mr. McKinnon said, anybody that wants to come down and go for a tour, I do plan on having an open house when the weather breaks, if it ever breaks, and we'll go from there. Second. Motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.